Once our 150 frames have been rendered, we do want to check in on them, make sure all the files are where they should be, also play them back so that we can examine them and analyze the rendering and the motion. And first I would go into my Windows Explorer and in the exercise files or whatever project folder, under Render Output, I've got my walkthrough images. And you can see they're numbered with 4 decimal places from 0001 down to 0150.png. Now I'll go over to 3ds Max and load those frames into a panel which will allow me to play them back in real time. It's called the RAM player. We'll find it in the rendering menu, and then near the bottom, compare media in RAM player. And the RAM player window opens up. It's called compare media because, in fact, we can load in 2 different image sequences side by side and compare them. We've got an A and a B channel here. I've only got one sequence, so we're only going to use channel A. I'll go over here and click on Open Channel A and browse. I'm taken to my Render Output folder. Go into the Walkthrough subfolder and select just the first frame. And down here you'll see it says Sequence, and that's enabled. Go ahead and click Open. We get another dialog, and this is just allowing us to choose certain frames. We do want to load all of them in here. So we'll just click through, click OK. Then we get another dialog in which we have the ability to load it in at a different size. For example, if it didn't fit all on the screen, we could maybe knock that down. I'm just going to leave that at the default of the actual image size of 1280 by 720. Over here, you can set a limit on the amount of memory or RAM that is used. And we won't hit a memory limit here, but if you had a very large image size and or a very long image sequence, you might run out of memory on your machine. You could go here and actually limit that usage. I'll click OK. And then those frames are getting loaded into memory one by one. And the advantage of loading them into memory is that we can control the playback speed and we can be sure that we won't have any issues with the playback having hiccups as it's playing back off of the hard drive. If we were playing back off the hard drive, we may not be able to maintain enough disk throughput in order to play uncompressed image sequences in real time. But since we're playing out of memory, we probably won't run into any performance issues. All right, so we can go ahead and press play, see what our animation looks like. All right, very cool. We are having a few little render artifacts, but again, that's just because this is a draft quality rendering. A cool feature of the RAM player is the ability to play at different frame rates in order to analyze the sequence. Up here is the frame rate, and we could choose a different frame rate, like maybe play back at 10 frames per second instead. And that way we could maybe examine that and check to see if there are any issues by playing it back in slow motion. We could, in fact, just type in any value we wanted here if we wanted to play back at 12 frames per second or whatever. All right, put it back to 30. Cool, so that's our draft quality rendering. I'm actually going to show you now what this looks like in full glory, rendered in Mental Ray. And here it is. We're seeing the full rendering. And this took about 5 hours to render this 5-second sequence. So because of that time constraint, I chose to just show you how to render with draft quality and then play back in the RAM player. All right, cool. So that is the end of our render chapter. And in fact, that wraps up our whole course on 3ds Max 2017 Essential Training.